Welcome back to the BTO Sunday recap. Once again, we're here on a Monday, hoping that this works. We've been having some technical difficulties all morning, but we're here to recap the Wildacrd games. We're here to recap the coaching vacancies, and we're here to defend Mike Merlo and his great partner at Hardline Sports Talk, JM, who just caught some unnecessary strays yesterday for a post that I would really call brave, posting a prediction, because you got a 50-50 shot in a football game of getting it right. Those are not great odds. Despite people thinking they are, those are not great odds. And Mike comes out, says Cowboys are going to get rolled. Right when that's posted, you probably know what's going to happen, and it's going to be the complete reverse. But either way, everybody was saying it, man. Everybody was on Dallas in this game. Every major analyst, every network personality, CBS, Fox, NFL Network, everybody picked Dallas. I did not see one Green Bay pick yesterday. Everyone thought this was going to be a complete rout. I thought it. No 7 seed has ever beat a 2 seed in a 17 playoff. And Dallas goes out and they get absolutely killed yesterday. Mike has been getting harmful, hurtful comments. We don't mind those. But I would just say to those who are down there in that comment section, which has done very well, almost 60,000 views for Hardline Sports Talk. Thank you for watching the video and sharing and commenting and liking. That's all terrific. Maybe throw a follow in. But
that would be nice.
That would be nice. But to all those commenting, did you wake up yesterday and say, today's the day Green Bay is going to win in Dallas and get this victory, and Jordan Love in his first year as starter is going to make this happen? Absolutely not. You didn't say that. If you're a Packers fan, you woke up and you said, what a season this year. Whatever happens today, I'm happy, which means you think you're going to lose. Because I heard that from multiple Packers fans, one of whom I have great respect for, did say that, said, what a fun season. Maybe my favorite Packers team I've ever watched, for someone who was too young to really grasp that Super Bowl. But and that's a very fair take. But don't come into the hardline comment section acting like you knew that Green Bay was going to put up 48 on the road in Love's first playoff game. You probably couldn't even name 3 of the players around him before the game started yesterday. So give Mike and JM some credit here and give them a damn follow on Hardline, would you?
Yeah, it would be nice to get a follow after all these hateful comments. But the one thing that's like bothering me right now is that I'm reading these comments and people think I'm a Dallas fan, okay? And I'm absolutely not a Dallas fan. I'm a Giants fan. So it hurts even more sitting there, almost having to root for the Cowboys to just save my reputation. But also the fact that they might actually move on from Mike McCarthy now. And as a Giants fan, even though we can't beat Mike McCarthy, we know that there's a ceiling with Mike McCarthy, right? Like, they're not going to get better than this level here. They go out and hire the greatest coach of all time, Bill Belichick. There's a chance that ceiling is raised a little bit higher. So, it was a brutal day. Give credit to those Packers, man. Jordan Love is unbelievable. He's fun to watch. It's absolutely incredible that this team is just able to breed quarterbacks the way they are. And the fact that Love kind of looks, a little bit like Rodgers, moves like Rodgers, throws the ball like Rodgers, it's sickening, honest to God. It really is.
Imagine being a Bears fan today. Before we get into Dallas, man. I mean, Bears fans this year have just been through it. This is the worst team to be a fan for right now. I don't care that you have the first pick. I don't care that you have another top 10 pick. You just went through. I mean, there's 15 years of Favre. Then there's 18 of Rodgers. And welcome to another 20 with Love, because it's here and the Lions got to win. Everybody's going up. Vikings have a good coach and a good young core. Everyone's going up except for the Bears, who just keep recycling the same 3 or 4 years of strategy, which is new head coach, keep the head coach, draft a few quarterbacks. All of them stink. No 3,000-yard passing seasons in that quarterback's tenure. Don't even make a playoff appearance. Lose in the first round. Get really excited again because you get a new quarterback. But, oh, wait. There's a Hall of Fame quarterback in Green Bay, and there's another really good team in this division that's better than us. And Minnesota's probably going to stay better as well. Yeah. We'll talk about Chicago later when we talk coaching carousel and everything, but let's go here to Dallas. I won't pity the Bears anymore. Let's go to Dallas here, Mike, because I think from every phase of this game, defense with Dan Quinn Dak Prescott being underwhelming after probably his best regular season. Mike McCarthy's play calling just not being up to par in this game. The team not being ready to play a 7 seed, losing at home. The age of Jerry Jones, just every single factor involved. I think this is a clean house game for everyone on the staff and Dak Prescott.
Yeah, you have the Dak Prescott contract situation, which we can get to later on because he needs an extension to kind of help the cap situation out a little bit. So that's one thing. Do you pay him and do you keep him long term? You mentioned the coach. I would move off of McCarthy because you got to look at it like this. And Greg Olson, I think, said it yesterday. If you fire Mike McCarthy, right? How many teams are looking to hire that guy? Does Mike McCarthy get another job in this cycle? Most likely not, right? I would guess that McCarthy's not getting hired. So
maybe a Carolina job that no one goes to. That's the only scenario. You're totally right.
And that it would probably be the only job that would offer him.
Exactly.
So, okay, that's the exception. And that's a terrible, terrible job that I wouldn't even want working under David Tepper. So I think McCarthy's got to go. I think Quinn's still going to be the head coach. I know it was a terrible performance from that defense. I think he's still going to get the Seahawk job. It's tough, man. It's tough. And the penalties. This team's the most penalized team since McCarthy's been there. So, yeah, to me, you get rid of everybody. You hire a Belichick. You hire a guy that you believe, is the right fit to be your next head coach. Jerry Jones' age is interesting. If he wants a Super Bowl soon, I think you got to keep Dak and let go of McCarthy. I think Dak gives you the best chance to win. What quarterback are they going to bring in, Kevin?
That's exactly the issue for them. I had said at the beginning of the year it's not going to happen, but if there was some sort of an Aaron Rodgers move that they could make to send Dak to the Jets, that's not going to happen. I don't think that there's another veteran. You're not going to try to go get Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. It's not an upgrade. So it's tough. I mean, there's no alternative to Dak, especially because you can't move up 25 spots in the draft. That's not realistic either. But I think Dak, I think he could win in the NFC with a coach who can really emphasize defense, shore up their defense. This is Bill Belichick I'm describing. And emphasize a run game and a run-heavy offense and simplify things for Dak. Because I'll be honest with you, you could call me absolutely nuts after the last few years, and it's warranted. I trust Bill Belichick with an offensive play sheet more than I trust Mike McCarthy with one. I understand Bill Belichick's a defensive coach. I think Bill Belichick at a point in time was the best offensive coach on the New England Patriots. I think he still was. I think his quarterback just ended up being Mac Jones and Bailey's happy. There's no way this guy won 6 Super Bowls and can't coach offense well and improve Dak Prescott and this Cowboys offense. It just doesn't work for me if that's the case.
Listen, as long as the front office stays in place where, they're able to draft offensive linemen, they're able to bring in weapons. I know you have mentioned that, their weapons looked underwhelming yesterday. I think CeeDee Lamb's a top 3 wide receiver right now. You bring in another receiver, okay, and then Jake Ferguson looks like he's going to be a top 10 tight end. So offensively, weapon-wise, you're fine. That was the biggest problem in New England. So as long as the people that are making the personnel decisions are still staying in place and Belichick now just has a say and he's not, the overall decision maker, it's a perfect landing spot. You hire an offensive coordinator you have trust in, and like you mentioned, it's been about simplifying the game for Dak Prescott. He's at his best when his running game is going and you're able to work the play action. He can throw the ball downfield. We know that when things are there. So Dak Prescott, to me, he was the problem yesterday, but he's not the overall problem for the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's coaching.
And yesterday, you go into a game and where Dak has really thrived this year, and where every quarterback thrives, I mean, we just talked about it ad nauseum for the last 3 or 4 minutes, is simplified offense. But Dak he's great when McCarthy's emphasizing the underneath game, screens, shallow crosses, getting the ball out in 2 or 3 seconds, even less, second and a half, quick 2-3 step drop and getting rid of it. And a lot of times that was CeeDee Lamb in the slot. That was a big move they made this year, which helped a lot to get the ball out quicker. But overall, man, yesterday they go into a game and it's like they're trying to play home run ball with Dak, and I just can't get behind McCarthy's game plan from yesterday.
You ever play Madden as a kid, right? And listen, I'm about to compare us playing Madden to the NFL, but you'll get
Yeah.
my point. Where you're in a tough game and you just threw a ton of interceptions and you're like, I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna keep throwing. I'm just gonna keep playing and whatever. And it just spirals. That's kind of what it looked like for Dak Prescott yesterday. It just spiraled. How many other balls did he throw that should have been? At least 2 other throws should have been intercepted yesterday. That little flip pass that I forget who almost dove on it and intercepted it. And then the one in the end zone, I think it was, I forget, 56. He dropped an interception in the end zone. So it should have been 2 more interceptions for Dak. It just spiraled for him yesterday. It was just a brutal, brutal day. And on top of it, their defense couldn't stop Jordan Love, who was excellent in the game.
He leads the game with a perfect passer rating in his first game against one of the defenses that love to consider themselves top 5, that everyone loves to consider top 5 because they are. And they come in, they lay an absolute egg. My dogs are just losing their minds here.
I thought it was my dog for a second.
No, it's mine. I mean, just losing their minds back here. I almost want to go and take care of this situation, but I don't even know what I would do with them. I don't know what's going on. So I'll move on, and hopefully they stop at some point in the next 2 or 3 minutes. I look at Dak and I say, hey, you know what? Every year you come in here, you're the Cowboys quarterback. There's no more pressure on anyone else. You are the guy that all eyes are on in the postseason every year. I mean, I'm an AFC guy. I'm not into the whole Cowboys America's team thing, but every year I want to see if they can do it. That is the team I think of every single year, because is Jerry Jones really going to go out? And I mean, how old is he? Late 80s? Is he going to go out here with a 30-year championship drought and you're questioning whether or not he was actually a good owner? I mean, that's a situation that's becoming reality.
Yeah, you got to think that he's going to win one more. And again, that just emphasizes the point of him kind of making a move here, making a change, him probably realizing, and the front office probably realizing, you're not getting much farther with McCarthy and McCarthy leading this team. So as good as the staff is, having Dan Quinn on this staff as your defensive coordinator, which is, again, I really like Dan Quinn. I think he's the best defensive coordinator in the league, or second best defensive coordinator. You want to throw Vic Fangio into there, but he's fantastic. The staff's great. It's just, it's probably time for a change, even though the success you've had in the regular season, to have these duds in the postseason, 12 points against San Francisco last year, losing at home to San Francisco 3 years ago, and obviously this loss, it might be enough that the standards are higher in Dallas when you're winning this many games in the regular season.
All right, my dog's not stopping here, so I'll be right back. You can break down this Gabe comment quick.
Yeah. So shallow cross concept on the best in the NFL, one of the best in the NFL. So many variations and easy to run. McCarthy and Dummy stopped it, and it cost them. Cooks was a no-show, and McCarthy didn't try to involve them. Yeah, Gabe, again, it kind of just, it looks like it just spiraled. That, they go down 7-0 after Green Bay just completely drives down the field. Then you have the 3-and-out. And then he throws the interception. Things just spiraled for them, and they went away from what they do best because they found themselves in a hole. And how many times do we see this now? And then you think, after they go down 27-0, they score at the end of the half with no time left, that there's a possibility that maybe they're going to be able to gain some momentum here and score again to go down 27-14 coming out of the half. They're a no-show, and they kicked the field goal, and they got bailed on a penalty on a face mask that it looked like Dak was down. Whatever. I thought that was kind of a bailed call there, but things just spiraled for this Cowboy team, and they ultimately paid the price, and now they're out, and now there's going to be changes. There has to be changes with the coaching staff, with Mike McCarthy. But it's unfair. Like, we're talking about Dallas in a way where, things didn't go right. But why not give more credit to this Packer team? I mean, yeah, they had, a pick six. They had some turnovers, the other interception that set them up nicely. Like, I want to give credit to a Packer team, and specifically a Packer defense, that has been so incredibly bad all season. Joe Barry, I mean, he should have been fired weeks ago. And ultimately, they show up and they do a job. They turn them over. They win the turnover battle. It was a perfect game plan from LaFleur. They got the turnovers on Dak Prescott. And if you're turning Dak Prescott over, you win the turnover battle, you're going to win the game. If Dallas is winning the turnover battle, they put the stat up early on. They're almost unbeatable at home when they win the turnover battle. They obviously don't yesterday. And they pay the price. They pay the price. Green Bay wins that turnover battle, and the defense. You want to tell me, 40 points from the offense? No, the defense playing the way they did for Green Bay was the most impressive part of yesterday.
All right, so I'll seamlessly just jump back in.
Yeah.
Joe Barry probably saves his job with this win, I think.
I don't think so.
That's not going to make Green Bay fans happy, but I think that continuity is so important in the NFL. And when you have a situation where, okay, you lost a game, you played terrible against Carolina, your defense played terrible against Tampa, and really against most other teams in the league.
Everybody.
But you got a young group. I don't think they have the best pieces on defense, so you can give him a mulligan for this year. You won a playoff game, you took the ball away multiple times, and the defense showed up. I think that you can give him a mulligan, a Robert Saleh mulligan for this season because he won that playoff game. And I think that Green Bay fans are going to be disappointed, but I think Joe Barry has a good shot at getting another year here.
Yeah, but what if they give up 40 to San Francisco and get blown out by 30 points? I mean, again, San Francisco is much better than them, and it might be expected, but I just cannot see from the performances and the teams that they lost to, and you almost lose to Carolina, Tommy DeVito beats you. There's just so many examples of this defense failing in terrible, terrible spots. Even with yesterday, I still think you can, unless you win the Super Bowl, I think you can move on.
Yeah, it's either way. I mean, they could do it, and there won't be too much slander or this. I'm just all thrown off now, so I don't know vocabulary anymore.
How did the dog situation go? It's all. It
was a bit of a war. It was a bit of a war. I had to really battle with them to get them outside.
What kind of dogs are they?
Labradoodles, 35 pounds, 40 pounds, maybe.
How many? Two.
Yeah, but they're feisty, man.
Yeah,
they're feisty. They go at it. They'll go at me. Try to evade me. Very elusive, fast.
Right.
Kind of like Christian McCaffrey of dogs.
But you're an
Labradoodles of Labradoodles. Yeah, but I'm on that decline. I'm on the decline. I'm kind of like my NFL comparison right now would be probably Mason Crosby.
Wow. Pretty bad.
I can still kick the ball. Don't know where it's going to go. Let's move on here.
Yeah.
Packers, big win. Packers, big win.
Congrats to the Packers.
Great job.
I was wrong.
Bay.
I was wrong.
Congratulations. Where Mike was wrong. Won't be the first time. Won't be the last.
Nope.
Chiefs, Miami. Actually, Houston played before them, so I want to go there.
Yeah.
Houston and Cleveland, Joe Flacco, we're all pumped up about it. I mean, on our last recap, we were talking about this team can go on the run. They've got all the momentum. And in hindsight, maybe they shouldn't have sat him week 18. The momentum felt like it kind of died there. But regardless, this Houston team's good. Team's good. CJ Stroud is great.
Yeah, we were wrong, right? I mean, maybe the team that won this game, we were just on the wrong side of it, is going to be the team that kind of gains the momentum and goes on a run. Is it crazy to think that CJ Stroud riding this hot hand and DeMeco Ryans, that they could possibly go into Baltimore and win a game? They played them close and tough in that early season, early matchup in the regular season. I don't think it's entirely impossible.
I tell you what here, man. It's another one of those nothing to lose spots with a young team. And I think John Harbaugh, you're obviously confident always in your team. So I'm not saying John Harbaugh is scared and worried about playing anybody because they have to be ready for it. That's their job. They're the one seed, the best team in football. They're prepared for what's going to come to Baltimore, whether it was Cleveland, whether it was Buffalo, it couldn't have been Buffalo, but whether it was Miami, whoever. They were ready. They were going to be ready, and they will be. But you got to be watching that saying, we got a handful this week, and our guys better be dialed in, all 53 guys, because one guy slacks off this week, Houston's going to come get you because they're going to be ready to play. Houston will be ready to play in this game.
And let's talk about it from a fan's perspective. What a terrible game to watch. I mean, early on, you think you're going to have a heavyweight matchup between these two teams offensively. And then by the end of the second quarter, you realize this game was probably over. And then the third quarter, obviously, where Houston runs away. So you had a bad Saturday of football. And you have the Texans here just putting on a show. CJ Stroud, I mean, if he hasn't introduced himself to the top, the top class of the quarterbacks in the league, he absolutely did that in his first playoff performance. He's unbelievable. And I've said it so many times, and I'll say it again. When I watch this kid play and he does what he does, I'm left amazed every single time. He amazes me just every game that I watch him play. So he's unbelievable. This team, Will Anderson has really started to come on. He's been fantastic in the second half of the season, and he had a nice game against Cleveland. And I saw this stat that Myles Garrett just got bottled up by Laramie Tunsil. So that's line play, and we're losers and we like that stuff. That's an impressive performance.
Love line play. I also, just for line play, let's shout out Zach Tom on Green Bay, who had Micah Parsons just invisible yesterday. So great line play. And I was going to go right to the Cleveland defense here for my thoughts on the game, because they absolutely blow it. I don't care how Joe Flacco has played. You don't want a 38-year-old fresh off the couch playing a shootout in this game on the road. Absolutely not the way you want to do this. And it shows the value of an elite edge rusher, because Myles Garrett's taken away from the league's best defense this year statistically. He gets taken away, and they get 45 points put on him. Well, a couple defensive touchdowns also, but they did not play well. And you have, over in Dallas, one of the best defenses in the league, you take away their premier pass rusher, and they felt like a non-factor. I want to go to these two quarterbacks that we've talked about a lot here, Jordan Love and CJ Stroud. How come? Genuine question. I think I would take Stroud. I'll preface with that. I think I'd take Stroud over Love. I think most people would, but not a huge gap. We both really like Love, and we love what we've seen this year. But how come Jordan Love is not held in the same regard as CJ Stroud? Is it because he's in his fourth season? Is it because Stroud's the rookie? I don't know, because Love has really been just as good, and they had literally nearly identical passing games yesterday. Two yards off was Love from getting Stroud's exact stat line. How come Love isn't held in that same elite regard yet as Stroud?
Because Love is not a rookie, and you hit on it. Love got to sit in a system for 3 years behind a Hall of Fame quarterback, where the Hall of Fame quarterback won another MVP, and clearly LaFleur's system works, and it's a good offensive system. He got to learn in it for 3 years, and he started off the year pretty poorly. We watched him play. He was bad. So I think that has everything to do with it. And then you go to CJ Stroud. He's a rookie head coach. I know the weapons are pretty even, or they're not great, but the offensive line for Houston isn't as good. And you have the defensive coach in D'Amico Ryans compared to the offensive coach in LaFleur. So there's a lot of reasons why I think Stroud's year is just more impressive than what Love has done. Still, they're both the future of this league. They're both fantastic young quarterbacks, but Stroud's just a little bit more impressive.
Yeah, it gets me really excited with these two guys, because they're both on neutral teams that I don't dislike, that I don't love, and I can just enjoy watching the two of them play.
Yeah.
But Stroud, man, what a story this year for Houston. They get D'Amico Ryans. In the age of defensive head coaches dying, he comes in and he brings a great staff from San Francisco and elsewhere. And second pick, I mean, I remember saying at the draft, this team's going to be picking first next year, because they just felt like they had no weapons. I mean, who was Nico Collins? We all knew him because he was all right last year, all right rookie last year. I mean, Tank Dell, we didn't think these guys were going to have this impact. And how about Devin Singletary, too, taking the RB1 role and just running away with it this season when Dameon Pierce got hurt. But this Texans team's really fun. I think that they're a great story to root for in this postseason now, with a couple others being eliminated that we all liked going into the season. I mean, we liked the Flacco headline. I think that was the
Yeah,
most
we did.
popular one for Wildcard weekend. And then you have a lot of the usual culprits who nobody's rooting for. But the new dog in the fight is Houston, and they got a great shot at this thing. I think that they could pull off a huge upset this week in Baltimore. Absolutely could, if, of course, Buffalo wins, which should happen. But I'm excited for that game next week, Baltimore-Houston.
Yeah, and again, that regular season matchup, I think it was week 2 or week 1. It was early on in the season where, I think Baltimore kind of won the game by 10 to 13 points, but the game was close, and Baltimore just could not put that team away. So I'm excited for another tough game in Baltimore next week on Saturday. I'm pretty sure it'll be, as long as, Buffalo wins and things go the way we believe it will. But I think CJ Stroud and these Texans, it just buries the point of, well, you need this and this before you draft a quarterback. Like, if you fall in love with the quarterback, you got to draft him, because you mentioned the roster around him. These aren't great pieces. They didn't put CJ Stroud into this perfect situation and then, poof, he became this franchise quarterback. He elevated the entire franchise and has put the franchise back on the map and back in a position where this team's going to be in the playoffs for the next 10, 15 years, undoubtedly.
And they are now the last Texas team standing. Sorry to Dallas. And that's gotta bother Jerry Jones a little bit. Not that there's any rivalry there at all. Since
they've come into the league as an expansion team, they have more playoff wins than the Cowboys. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that.
And just a year or 2 years before was Dallas's third Super Bowl. I don't know. I know the year. I don't know if it was like with seasons, how they start in a different year. But just a year or two before was Dallas's third Super Bowl. So who would have thought that coming into it? Let's go to Saturday night's game. Chiefs hosted Miami. I don't really have much to say for this one. Just a Chiefs team who's been there before, playing at home, freezing temperatures. Miami's practicing at 85 degrees all week. They come in, and the Chiefs defense does what they've done all year. Mahomes crosses midfield enough to get Butker a range. Butker had a great game. Maybe you could say here, is Tua an issue? Can he throw with the big quarterbacks? That's valid, but in that game, that's not my takeaway at all. I just think Miami's beat down. Their defense had 2 starters on it, and they just could not play in that weather.
Yeah, that's the thing. They couldn't play in the weather, and the defense is just so banged up, it's almost impossible for them to win. Tua obviously did not look good, but again, I think you gotta blame the weather. That was an historically cold game. So I know there's a lot of Tua haters coming out of the woodworks now. I'm not there yet. I still think Tua's like in that Dak range. I think Tua is the lefty version of Dak in the AFC.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what he is. So you take that what you will. I think they have a really good offensive system and good players on offense where you can win. But for me, the problem here is Kansas City in the red zone. They are not good in the red zone.
No.
And if they want to beat a Buffalo team in Buffalo, which is just, I cannot wait for that game, as long, again, as Buffalo wins in a couple of hours here, they have to be better in the red zone or they're going to lose in Buffalo.
And Kelsey, another dud of a game, really. I mean, got to say it how it is. Just an underwhelming game from Travis Kelsey now in the postseason. And now you think maybe he's not going to return to form this year, because we talked about it a few times. You guys have spoken about it on Hardline, I know, and everyone's been kind of touching on it. Just Kelsey's taken a step back this season, and whether it's because of age, whether it's because of everything off the field, he's not been himself on the field. And I thought that'll change in the playoffs, give him a week off in week 18 and let him lock in for the postseason, and a couple big drops this week. And he's just doesn't have the same presence out there on the field that he usually does. That's a huge issue for Kansas City because that's their red zone guy.
Got to get him going. I remember early on in the season, he had slipped up on his knee. What was that? We thought he tore his ACL in Minnesota, right? Remember that?
Yes.
He went off the field. It looked really bad. It ended up being something in his leg, whatever. Is that injury still lingering? Are there other injuries still lingering here for Travis Kelce? I think we need to raise that question. They need to get him going. Rashee Rice had a really nice game. He's a guy that they're going to have to rely on. He went down, though, in that game as well. I'm pretty sure he came back and was fine. But Pacheco running the ball, getting the ball to Rice, hopefully getting Kelce going. There's a path here for this Kansas City team. I think, like we've said, for the past 2 months now, where you can't count them out just yet. Do not count this team out just yet, but it's going to be tough to go into Buffalo and win.
The other game that we'll get to, I mean, I really just, do you have anything else from the Chiefs Dolphins? I just have nothing from it. It was just the stalest game of
It
the
was
weekend.
looking forward to it, and it just was terrible. So
I was looking forward
that's
to the
sad a bit.
matchup, but I think we all knew with that weather, it was not going to be the game we all hoped. It wasn't going to be the Germany rematch revenge game that Miami wanted it to be.
Well, I hoped that the defenses would perform, and Kansas City's defense did. I thought Miami's defense, even though as banged up as they were, would kind of perform, and the weather would stop Kansas City a little bit, where we would have that kind of game, but we didn't. It was a dud. It was a terrible Saturday of football.
Yeah, well, we'll move on. Lions, Rams, absolutely not a dud. The Stafford return game, the storyline I was more, encapsulated, however, whatever word it would be. As I said before, vocabulary's out the window. But the storyline I was more focused on was Jared Goff in this game because, Stafford went to the Rams and Stafford proved everyone right. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams and the Rams made the right decision and that was it. But now Goff got a chance to say, you threw me here just to the wolves in Detroit. And we all thought this is going to be the next journeyman, maybe a Fitzpatrick type of career where there's just not much glory at all.
Really solid backup.
Exactly. That's what we thought it was going to be. And they start 0-9-1. They get that win in Minnesota, or 0-12-1 maybe. I don't know which one it was. But either way, they were terrible his first year. We thought Dan Campbell was a joke. And now Campbell, Goff, and Brad Holmes, the general manager, who I happen to think is the best in the entire league.
Wow.
I'm a huge Brad Holmes fan.
Wow.
The three of them have totally flipped the narrative on this entire franchise. And now they're the fun team that everyone wants to win in the NFC, that we'd all like to see win. And they win their first playoff game in a million years. And they had all the alumni there from the last game. Looks like they're about ready to go into the old age home. And the Lions come out and they get a win and they revitalize. I mean, you got 89-year-old that season ticket holder, 66 years of season tickets, 66 years of Lions season tickets, man. You could have spent your money a lot better, but good for him, good for them. And, maybe hire a financial advisor at that point, but good for them. That was a fun one. And I love Jared Goff. I've been a huge Goff fan before the season. I had a terrific MVP. My final three in MVP predictions was Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, and Trevor Lawrence, which has really worked out nicely. And Goff's last man standing. And he's just made me proud this week. Loved what Jared Goff did.
Yeah, listen, Goff's impressive, especially in that first half. My storyline, the takeaway I'm taking away in this game is, said takeaway twice there, is the fact that the Rams should have won this football game and Matt Stafford was the best player on the field all night.
Man, he can spin it still.
It's incredible that, and listen, he was banged up last year. He had the neck injury, and we really didn't know what was going to happen with Matt Stafford coming into the year. But I remember doing quarterback rankings, whether it was with you or on Hardline, and, just going through like the top 7 or 8 guys, and Stafford's not even mentioned. And yet Stafford is one of the top 7 guys in the league at this point, in my opinion. He's fantastic. He can still sling it. He was unbelievable last night. And, I got to give you credit because you drafted this guy in fantasy football, Puka Nacua.
15th round.
I mean, what is this guy? Is he a top 10 receiver? He's probably a top 10 receiver already.
He is awesome.
The guy is incredible. He's fun to watch. He looks like he's the number 1 right now in LA over Cup. Just sucks they lose this game, and they lose this game because they couldn't convert in the red zone and score points. And there were a few times where I thought they should have went for it. McVay was not as aggressive as I thought he should be, and they lose this game because of it.
I tell you what, you want to talk about good GMs, Les Snead with the Rams, man, who has, the whole FM picks saga, which gets him a Super Bowl. And, there's guys like Howie Roseman, Howie Roseman's terrific. I'm not going to sit here and try. I don't want to sound like an Eagles hater and a Roseman hater, but I think Howie, what his greatest feat was rebuilding that team so fast from the first Super Bowl roster, but he does a little too much trading and outside acquisition for my liking. That's just a personal preference thing. Les Snead has now shown me he can home grow a roster filled with superstars. Puka Nacua is a superstar. Kyron Williams is a superstar. You can home grow these guys on day 3 of the draft And you can also acquire a Super Bowl team through trade. And that, to me, is the mark of a great general manager, because now he's shown he's elite in every facet. And so is Howie Roseman. I don't want to say that he's not, but I was using him as the example.
Yeah.
But he's shown me now that he can do both jobs, external acquisition and homegrown with whatever picks you have. If he has 4 picks, they're getting 3 starters. And that's the way it's been for the Rams. And he's just done a terrific job. Him and McVay both.
And there's a couple of defensive guys too. What was his name? Kobe something.
Yeah, he's going to be a defensive rookie of the year finalist. He
So
won't win, but
what an unbelievable job he has done. I think a lot of credit has to go to McVay as well, especially with these offensive pieces, whether it's Kyron Williams or, Puka Nacua. So it's truly just unbelievable what McVay has been able to do all of these years in what was supposed to be a rebuild year. So give him credit. They'll be back. I mean, Stafford, I wanted to mention, he's such an interesting topic. Like, is he available? Probably not, right? They're going to want to try and run this back and, try and win a Super Bowl again next year. But it is really interesting.
I think that's a destination. Now that they're back to a normal cycle of 7-8 picks a draft, that's a destination for a guy like Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy in this draft, because Les Snead's going to say, hey, I draft all pros, and with McVay's help, I know McVay is heavily involved in scouting. He's one of those head coaches that are very, very involved on draft day. But Les Snead's going to show up and say, hey, I can get in the second day or third day, I can find all pro playmakers. So let me draft the quarterback here in the first round, sit for 2 or 3 years. JJ McCarthy could benefit greatly from that with Stafford if he was to fall in the draft to the third, around that bottom 10.
Yeah.
Maybe into the second round. So that's a move I could see them making. But Stafford, they're absolutely going to want to run it back because you have a good veteran quarterback who proved himself again this year. Had some doubters, proved himself a few years ago when he won the Super Bowl. So he's battled adversity his whole career. And he can sling it, man. He's one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the conference. Maybe not anymore with Love entering that mix, but either way, he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the conference at the worst. So definitely run it back. I mean, the conference sucks too, man.
It does. I was going to say, we thought Hurts was the guy. Is Hurts the guy? Dak?
No,
Dak
right now, is there a guy in that conference that you would take over Jordan Love?
Future or just this year?
Future. Franchise quarterback. Is there a guy you take over Jordan Love? There's not.
Probably not.
I don't
Probably
think so.
not at this point.
I think the Eagles, I don't think they'd trade Hurts for Love, but I think they'd say, I'd like to see what that looks like.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to ask, that's why I started laughing. Anybody know what happened to Stetson Bennett? Like, is that
I think that one's wrapped, man.
Is that known?
Over.
Because, like, McVay's such a great coach. Like, we saw what he did with Baker last year. He got Baker a job, and now Baker's in the playoffs, hosting a playoff game.
Yeah.
I think McVay's one of those guys where, first of all, you'll take him any day you'll be your coach. He's like in that class, and we know this, of Shanahan, where I think he can make anybody look really, really good at that position. Like, if Stetson Bennett was not, gone from the face of the earth, could he make Bennett a potential guy that could be like a game manager, run your offense? Probably, right? Like, I think he's just that good of a coach.
He probably could. And I think where McVay went differently than Shanahan, that's why he has the ring, is he said, I can only do so much. I can put them in the position, but I can't make the throws. So I'm going to get someone that I know for sure can make the throws. And if Matt Stafford's quarterbacking the 49ers, not that he was available for them, but if he's quarterbacking the 49ers versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, Kyle Shanahan has a ring. Maybe probably multiple if he's there for a few years.
Think it's an ego thing with Shanahan?
I don't know. I think it's just hey, we do such a great job with guys like Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, they paid Jimmy Garoppolo a lot of money. He was the highest paid quarterback of all time when he got his contract. But we do such a good job with Brock Purdy, and we're winning with Brock Purdy. Why would we pay $50 million? Because now, I mean, the gap is huge from $800,000 with Purdy to $50 million. And I think Shanahan's going to say, I'm so good at this, which he is. He's going to say, I'm so good at this. Let's keep that money with Debo and McCaffrey, because if Garoppolo's their quarterback, McCaffrey doesn't happen.
Right.
Because they can't pay both. And if McCaffrey happens, then Bosa might be gone. But now they have Chase Young, Bosa. They add all these guys. because their quarterback makes $800,000.
Well,
So at that point, if you're John Lynch, do you even want to upgrade?
Well, I think if you could guarantee a Super Bowl and you could have gotten a guy like Stafford, or, we know this is unconfirmed, but, remember that barbershop clip when Brady said you have that guy, and apparently the team that didn't want him and said no to Brady was San Francisco.
Yes.
Again, it could be a money thing where, okay, we don't want to allocate so many funds to the position because we want to pay other positions and other players. But man, it could be an ego thing, but I think that you're probably right. It's more so we want the money to spend on the other guys.
And Purdy's good. We've both said,
Love
Purdy's
Brock Purdy.
Is he better than, though? Is he elite? I don't think so. Like alone, is he elite? No, but he is a perfect system quarterback, which I hate using that term because it's been so slandered recently, but he's a perfect system quarterback, perfect guy to come in and understand what has to be done to win. That's a quarterback that I like, is Purdy. And why would you pay him more, Here's another one from Gabe. Great line play award goes to the Lions, who might have the best offensive line in football. It's one of the reasons I love Brad Holmes. I just think that Lions team, man, I mean, I texted you this last night, I think. Underrated roster.
Yeah, the defense, I know they've done a good job. Branch is a great draft pick in the second round from Alabama.
Yes.
They've done a good job of revamping the secondary, which was so poor last season. It was terrible. They've done a pretty good job, even though they've dealt with some injuries there. I'm not 100% sold on the defense, although offensively, especially with that offensive line play, Gabe's 100% right. And then you go to the right side of that offensive line, look at Penny Sewell, who's probably, I think Chris Collinsworth said he's the best offensive lineman in football. He might be one of the 5 best offensive linemen in football for sure at the right tackle position.
Yeah, and you look at the playmakers on their offense, too, with the exception of Gibbs, no first-round picks. Laporta, St. Brown, who's an all-pro. Laporta just broke the receptions record for a rookie tight end. There's no first-round picks in that mix at the receiver position. David Montgomery was a great pickup. Jared Goff, acquiring him was actually pretty easy for them, so I don't give them credit for that because the Rams wanted to get rid of him.
Got a ton of picks, though, too.
Got a ton of picks and hit on him. So they're a star or two away on their defense from really being great, but from what they were 2 or 3 years ago when these guys took over, man, what a great turnaround. All right,
Hutchinson has to be more consistent. That's the one thing.
Hutchinson does have to be more consistent. But they didn't blow that pick. That pick was a good draft pick. I would have taken him. I probably still would over the next 2 picks are better players, Stingley and Sauce. Maybe even Thibodeau's a better player at 5. Maybe. I
don't think so, but I would going into the draft, I would have taken Hutchinson 1. I wouldn't have taken Walker, and he's a better player than Walker. So I think they probably got it right at, before the draft. Like they said, oh, this is a steal with Hutchinson at 2. I think they're still kind of there where he's better than the guy that went 1.
Yes, absolutely. So let's move into today's games and quickly just predictions so you can get absolutely destroyed again.
We'll clip this. We'll post this.
We will clip it and post it. You want to just start by saying Philadelphia is going to roll over Tampa?
I think Philadelphia is going to roll Tampa Bay, and I have actually no reason why I believe that Philadelphia is going to beat Tampa, but I think they are. I just think Philadelphia has kind of played these just such weak teams the past few weeks now, and offensively, they have to figure something out. Even though you don't have A.J. Brown, they're going to protect Hurts. I don't love the pass rush from the Bucs. They'll protect Hurts. Hurts will run a little bit. They'll run the football, even though the run defense for the Bucs is pretty good. They'll run the football a little bit. Defensively, come on. I know they have weapons. Got to get a pass rush. Got to get a pass rush on Baker. He's banged up. I think the Eagles win this game by a touchdown or more.
I think the Eagles are going to win this game by anywhere between 5 points to 8 points. But I like the Eagles to move on. And I said it to you before, there's a path opening up with Dallas being knocked out. You lose a division rival. You lose a top 4 team. There's a path opening up for the Eagles to make a little bit of a run here. I think they can absolutely beat Detroit in the second round. But winner of this game does go to Detroit, which is awesome, which is fun. They had a great atmosphere last night. I got to go Eagles in this one. Also, I hope Tampa wins, though. I'll be rooting for Tampa.
See, here's my dilemma, because I hate the Philadelphia Eagles and want nothing more for them to just their fans to live in pain. So from an entertainment perspective, I would rather Philadelphia win this game and go play Detroit because that's a great second round matchup, right? But at the same time, like I want the rumors. I want Nick Sirianni should be fired. I want, is Jalen Hurts the guy? I want all this. So I think I'm okay with both here. I think they're going to win though. And also, again, I'm setting myself up here. I wanted that. Yeah, I picked Dallas to win. I kind of wanted them to win yesterday. Or if Sirianni loses this game and he gets fired, is it almost a guarantee that Belichick's in my division now for the next 5 years?
I wouldn't go guarantee, but I'd say it's pretty sure thing because I think he's going to end up in Dallas now. I think all Jerry has to do is make a call today, and even if he doesn't, McCarthy should be fired. That's neither here nor there. But I think he's going to end up in Dallas. If not, I could see a reality where he's in Atlanta. I really could, because Blank's going to give him whatever he wants, and he's going to say, we all know it's tough. It's not as easy, but he's going to say, all I need is a quarterback. Whereas that's the part that everyone always only needs. And that's the tough part. But there's free agents out there, Russ. Justin Fields is going to be on the move. But either way, I think that Bill will probably end up in your division. Yes. Sorry. But you know what? It's kind of karma. I've gotten a lot of trash from Giants fans over the last, and I'm not a Giants hater. You know that as well as anybody. Yes. I've gotten a lot of trash from Giants fans. So I was saying to one of my friends the other day who's just really ripped me for the Jets for one of my best friends really ripped me for the Jets for my entire life. Like, dude, you know what? Take 10 years of Belichick. Have fun, because this is what you get now. Take your 3 Arch Manning and Belichick in Dallas in 2 years. Go grab your 3 Super Bowls there, and you'll be in last place for a decade. And let me know how it feels at the end. Exactly. Let me know. Yeah. Let me know when I'm on top. When I finally get a playoff game, maybe not a win, but when I'm on top with a playoff game, 7-seed appearance next year, then you tell me how it feels now. I'm not
looking forward to this. I'm really not.
No, it's a bad reality, and I hate that you have to be a casualty of it. And Gabe also, I hate that both of you have to be casualties of it. But we all know what happens. Belichick goes to Dallas. He ends up sucking anyways. Nobody gets karma. Jets still stink. And that's my life.
Yeah, that might be the most likely end to this situation. But let me ask you this. If the Dallas job becomes available, and I'm excluding Philly from this because Philly would obviously be the most attractive job if it became available. Is Dallas the most attractive job compared to the Chargers, the Raiders, and the other ones available?
Yes, Dallas is, for me, it's absolutely the most attractive job.
Okay.
It depends who you are. Depends which coach you are. Like Ben Johnson, absolutely not. And they wouldn't hire him.
I think that would be perfect.
No, because I think that the pressure to win right now, and a lot of it has to do with Jerry's age. I mean, Jerry knows he is dying. I mean, he's not actually dying, but like Jerry knows there's not that much time. Jerry understands that because that's how old is Jerry Jones?
He's in his 80s. I'll look it up.
He's 88.
You continue your point. I'll look it up.
He's 81. I was totally wrong. I thought he was 88. All right. So I'm 7 years off. So there's not actually a huge pressure of dying.
No, I think there is. He does not look that healthy.
He doesn't. But I just think that there's that. He's like, I'm still sharp enough to run this whole thing. I'm still able to do that. One day, 4 or 5 years from now, I'm not going to be able to. And my son's going to be running it. I want to go out on top. He's already in the Hall of Fame. He needs that Super Bowl without Aikman. He's been the owner for centuries of this team. He needs that Super Bowl without Aikman. He bought the team in, 85, I think? So you have to get that Super Bowl without him, and you've had good enough teams, man. The Romo teams have been good enough. There were good enough Romo teams. There have been these Dak teams have easily been good enough.
The last 3 years have been good enough.
Some of the teams that have gone to the Super Bowl in the last few years, the Cowboys have been better than.
Yes.
And you have not had – Jason Garrett sucked at coaching. He got hired to do a year and a half of the worst offensive coordinator job I've ever seen with the Giants after. And now he's a scrub on NBC.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a disaster having Jason Garrett there for over a decade. Mike McCarthy is good. I truly believe that. Mike McCarthy's a good coach. He's not a great coach. He's not a great championship coach. If you look back at the Packers roster that he had when Aaron Rodgers had a terrific season, Super Bowl MVP, if you look back at that roster, he'll never have a better roster. The worst player on the defense was Charles Woodson. So that's not going to happen with McCarthy. Jerry Jones, aging, legendary sports owner. Bill Belichick, the greatest coach in the history of the league, also aging, trying to get a wins record, trying to get one without Brady. This is the perfect marriage. And even for a guy like Pete Carroll, it's great. For Dan Quinn, if he was to get elevated, that's a home run for him. For Vrabel, that's another home run. But at the end of for Harbaugh as well, I think Harbaugh is a great coach. I almost, in some situations, want him over Belichick. But it's an interesting job for sure, man. I'm really hoping it opens.
First off, these are the conversations you're not having on First Take or whatever, where we're talking about, well, this guy's dying, so they need to hire the right coach. I understand what you're saying. You're essentially saying you cannot have a retreaded head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. You need a guy that has experience and has championship pedigree or close a championship pedigree. Vrabel 100% would be a nice choice, but I really understand what you're saying, and you're 100% correct. This job has to open up, and if it opens up, it needs to be a guy like a Pete Carroll, like a Jim Harbaugh, and the obvious pick. And I think, and I'm 100% on board with you here, where if it does open up, it's going to be Belichick. It's going to be Belichick. It's going to be.
There's no way. There's no way, Mike, put yourself in Belichick's shoes. There's no way you get 5 phone calls from Jerry Jones, Arthur Blank, whoever the Seahawks owner is now, because the other guy died in 2016, whoever it is now, I think it's his wife who's going to sell the team in a year or two anyways. Seahawks also not a bad job. No one's talking about that one. I digress. The David Tepper calls you, and who else do we
Davis
have here?
in Vegas.
Davis, and then throw in Spanos too in LA. There's no way you turn down Jerry Jones in that spot because he's going to match any money you want. Right. And he has the best team. That's the best roster. I will say this about the Chargers too, because we're just going to go full coaching carousel here now. I will say this about the Chargers too. We both think the Bills are going to win. Don't need to do a prediction there. I'm going to say this one more time. I will say this about the Chargers too. That roster's not that good. I mean, yes, Herbert's there. He's the best quarterback available. You don't get a head coaching vacancy with a quarterback that good. But that roster sucks. That is my opinion on it. That's a Madden like 83, and everyone's like, oh, this roster's sick. That roster stinks. The team is not built well.
They got problems, and they have cap problems too, where they have just guys, top-heavy contracts of aging guys. So, yeah, it's not a great roster. I just think it's the most attractive job, second most attractive job at the moment. I think you can make the case for Seattle being the most attractive because you have that elite quarterback. Like you mentioned, jobs like that do not become available. So I would understand why Harbaugh is interviewing at the moment with the Chargers, because you want to tie yourself to that kind of quarterback if you're a head coach in this cycle. And yeah, I think with the Cowboys, though, when you look at that roster, any coach wants that job.
Harbaugh is, I will say, just a great quarterback coach. People don't give him credit for it. He went to San Francisco with, first of all, he recruited and developed Andrew Luck at Stanford. He went to San Francisco where Alex Smith was one of the biggest busts in NFL history. And he was in year 5 or 6 of his career, and it was just a mess. And he took him to a conference championship. And then 2 years later, he's taking Colin Kaepernick, who never played it down after 2015. And honestly, I don't think it didn't help him, but it's not completely because of the kneeling thing. He was not a good quarterback in his last season. He took those teams to conference championships and Super Bowls. Now at Michigan, you can't rip J.J. McCarthy and then tell me Harbaugh can't coach quarterbacks. Because if you think McCarthy sucks, that means Harbaugh's a damn good quarterback coach. Because McCarthy had a good season. He's 29-1 as a starter. So he makes life easy for the quarterbacks. Imagine what he can do with Justin Herbert. If those guys were what he's worked with and had success with, imagine what he does with Justin Herbert.
Yeah, but then you also, the rosters on those teams, I mean, not comparing Michigan's roster to the Chargers roster, but Michigan had a great team, obviously. Yes. And then you look at that San Francisco team,
loaded.
I mean, that defense was just completely loaded. So you don't have that in LA, and it might take a year or two to rebuild that defense and get some, younger weapons here that actually play and are not named Quentin Johnson. But Yeah, I think you're taking Herbert to that Hall of Fame trajectory that we all think he's on, to that level of Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. We all say Herbert's there, and I was the biggest Herbert guy in the world, and after watching him the last couple of seasons now, it's like, all right, well, I still think the potential's there, but he's not really showing me, especially last season. So you got to get a coach that's going to bring him to that level of being one of the top 4 guys in the league, because we've seen it before and we know it's there.
All right, so I'm going to throw this question to you now before we wrap up here. You're Bill Belichick or any of the coaches, but you're Bill Belichick in this scenario. The Eagles lose today. Job opens tomorrow. You have an offer from Dallas. You have an offer from Philly. Everyone else off the table. You don't want anything else. Which job between those two do you take?
God.
Very tough.
Dallas.
I agree. I would take Dallas as well. But Philly's, I think Philly's got better pieces, but I would take Dallas.
At the moment, Philly has better pieces at the moment. You got to remember that offensive line's aging, and I know they've kind of drafted a couple of their replacements. They have Kelsey's replacement there already. They're just great at drafting offensive linemen, but that line is aging. Defensively, they've tried to draft their replacements on the D line, and Jalen Carter for a rookie is really good, but he's inconsistent. And Jordan Davis, he's not the guy I think they thought he was going to be after his rookie year. They got problems on that defense. They got some, aging players on an offensive line. Is AJ Brown going to be there past this season? We have these issues now with him. So Philly has more questions, I think, than Dallas. I think Dallas just has shown that the front office, they're really good at drafting, just like Philly is. They could draft very well. So I think Dallas is the more attractive job.
I also think something that you have to factor in with Dallas is Belichick, his whole career has only answered to Robert Kraft. His entire career.
Yeah.
Dallas, you're going directly to Jerry Jones. He's the general manager and the owner. You don't have to worry about personnel, but you also don't have a general manager. Howie Roseman's your boss in Philadelphia, and Jeffrey Lurie is also your boss in Philadelphia. So in Dallas, Belichick responds to one guy, and he happens to be arguably, I think, the best owner in NFL history. And he's the general manager, and they do a great job evaluating talent, bringing it in. They do a great job with contracts, and you only have to answer to him. You're not going to answer to his scouts and his head of the scouting department. It's not going to happen. You're going right to him.
Yeah, that's the question I've had. Like, are the Falcons are very interested in him. They have a GM there, though. So what happens now? Because I don't want Belichick becoming the general manager. So in the case with Dallas, you're 100% right. He's answering to the head of the family, right? He's answering to the 3 guys in charge, where he's going to be involved in decision making, but he's not the number one guy making all the decisions. So that to me is the perfect spot, because again, we've seen the GM version of Bill fail in New England, where it wasn't the coach version. Belichick is still coach. He definitely still coach defense. We saw that this season. It was the GM version of Bill that really screws him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just doing both for so long. And it's easy. It's so much easier to be a general manager when you have a quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's so much harder to be one when you don't, because the quarterback just makes the offensive line better. It makes your receivers better, running backs better. It makes your defense so much better when you have that quarterback. I also think for Belichick, it's just focus on coaching, man. Go somewhere here where it's not some upstart franchise, because obviously that's how you start in New England. That's how you start in Cleveland. That's how you start everywhere you go. But you have an opportunity here to go to a couple different franchises that are not rebuilding, that are not starting over. Dallas, if Bill Belichick went to Dallas and they won the Super Bowl next year, is anybody surprised? Nobody surprised.
Do you think we get the McCarthy announcement like in the next day or two? And how long after do we get the Belichick announcement?
I think you'd have to see what happens in today's games, because I tell you, another wild card here that's so far out of reach, but nobody talks about it. What if Sean McDermott gets fired? What if the Bills lose today to Pittsburgh, and Buffalo calls the owner, Pagula calls Belichick, and he says, "Hey, man, you have dominated us in the division. If I fire Sean McDermott, will you take this job?" and you can coach Josh Allen and the Bills, get your revenge on Kraft, still beat the hell out of the Jets. You
That's
can
a selling
come,
point, by the way. That's 100%
that's a selling point. And he says, you can come here and do that. I will give you whatever contract you want. This franchise has never won a Super Bowl. You're a Northeast guy. Come, stay, and coach in Buffalo. Stay in the division. You know the conference. You know the division. And Bill might say, you know what? That's the best quarterback you're ever going to get in a coaching job.
Yeah.
That's Mike Merlo. And Bill's going to say to himself, he's say, that's Mike Merlo's QB1.
Yeah.
So I have to take this job.
That's my guy. That's my
and
guy.
Bill
over there,
he'll shore up that defense, man. You give him Matt Milano and that group of D linemen, he's going to shore up that defense.
And look what McDermott did with these injuries that they've had all year. I mean, as much as we were calling for his head 2 months ago after that Denver game, he's done a good job of, kind of, all right, this is what we're dealing with right now with the injuries that we have. These are the guys we have. Let's make something of it. I think he's done a good job, McDermott. But if they lose this game to Pittsburgh today, and just going back to what we saw early on in this season where it just looked like it was a bad coaching job, I think you have to consider moving on from McDermott.
This will be my closing thought for today's recap, which we went long on, had a great time.
Yeah.
All of this has been terrific. My closing thought for this recap is, how many teams do you think are sitting there right now saying, we got a pretty good coach, but the greatest of all time is out there? And now you have to weigh whether or not it's worth getting rid of your coach. Buffalo's in that spot. The only teams that aren't are maybe Kansas City, San Francisco, Baltimore. The Rams wouldn't do it. But other than 5 or 6 teams, I know I'm missing 2 or 3, but other than 5 or 6 teams, you have to evaluate whether or not Belichick's worth a phone call. And I guarantee you, we'll never hear about it. Maybe one day. But there's going to be 5 or 6 teams that don't fire their good head coach that call Bill Belichick and say, will you coach here? And he says, sorry, I'm just not interested. And so they keep their guy. And that happens only between Belichick and the owner, and no one ever hears about it again.
Yeah, there's a few teams probably that made the call. And then you have to think about the teams that see these coaches available. And is there another team that hasn't fired their coach yet that says, screw it, we have to fire our coach?
I mean, you would think there's Chicago and the Jets would be the two.
Those are the obvious.
Those are the two obvious. But then, I mean, what about Jacksonville? What about Jacksonville, who's saying, we got a pretty good team here, but I like what Mike Vrabel just did in the division the last few years. I can't believe they fired him. Or maybe just in the building, you're underwhelmed with Doug Peterson. That's it. That's a team that I could see trying to make a move there. Cincinnati. How about Cincinnati? You got a loaded team in Cincinnati. You've never won a Super Bowl in your franchise history. Zach Taylor, I thought, did a good job this year.
He did. I wouldn't move off of him.
Those kind of teams, I would say, let's just walk through with your main people around you. If you're the owner, I say, let's just walk through this hypothetical. If we fired Zach Taylor, one, how bad is the locker room going to be after? Are they that loyal to him? Two, if we ended up bringing in Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel or Pete Carroll, who I would not do for Zach Taylor, but if we did that, would we be better off tomorrow when that guy's our coach? And that all has to be evaluated because, and I think for Buffalo, I think Pagula would sit there and say, you know what, man, McDermott's just not getting us there. We've played, since we went to that conference championship, got killed by the Chiefs, we haven't been back. So McDermott's not getting us there. I've seen Belichick kick the crap out of us for 23 years. Let's do it. Why not?
See, if Pete Carroll and Mike Vrabel can be let go, then I think you have to question everything. Like if there is if those owners, and just look at Seattle, who's been a successful franchise for the past, decade plus, if they say, you know what, it's time to move on from this head coach, then I think most teams need to look at their situations and question their head coaches. By the way, here's a bold prediction for you. I think Callahan, the offensive coordinator from Cincinnati, is going to get a head coaching job.
Yeah, I can see it, man.
Hold on. Next season, this is the bold prediction. Next season, Zach Taylor will be fired. I think that coordinator, having him is so important. Losing his offensive coordinator, I think Taylor gets fired next year.
Yeah, Callahan's a stud. Callahan's really good. And Callahan's father is the Browns offensive line coach. He's one of the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And he just comes from a great football family. That's a good prediction, man. I'm not a huge Zach Taylor fan, but I thought he did a great job this year. I'll always admit when a guy proves me wrong. This year, I felt he did more than the Super Bowl year, to be quite honest with you. I mean, this year, the way he kept the ship afloat after Burrow went out was impressive. After a terrible start with Burrow, that's a good prediction. That's a good one.
Yeah, Browning looks like a, starting caliber quarterback. And I know they're a loaded offense, but bad offensive line. They looked like a starting caliber offense.
All right, so the last question I have for you before we end.
Yeah.
Now, because I just keep coming up with new stuff to finish with. Belichick, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel all get hired. Take Jim Harbaugh out of the equation, too. Who's the best guy?
Out of Belichick, Vrabel,
No,
Carroll.
those guys are gone. So Belichick, Vrabel, Carroll, and Harbaugh are gone already with new teams or whatever. Who's the next best guy? Is it Ben Johnson?
Yeah, I think it's Johnson. The job that he's done with Jared Goff, and listen, they've obviously drafted well, and the personnel is great in Detroit, but that offense is so dominant. They looked great last season. They look great this season. To get that kind of play out of Jared Goff and that team, I think it's got to be Ben Johnson, who's the number one guy and the number one, where if you're looking for that McVay, Shanahan kind of offensive scheme, I think that's kind of your guy for offensive coaches.
I'd have to agree.
What about for you? It's Johnson.
I'd agree. It's got to be Johnson, right? I mean, Callahan would be up there for me, but there's just not another. There's not another guy coordinator that's real. Whatever his name from Seattle, the OC, I'm blanking on his name now. Seemed like a great candidate as of last year, but now I don't know. I think that Mike McDonald in Baltimore is a good candidate, but it's offensive age, man. You got to go offense with these coaches. That's why I would go Ben Johnson over him. But if Johnson was gone, I'd be happy with McDonald, even though he's a DC. Yeah, that would be. Those are the guys. It's going to be interesting, though. I can't wait for this whole thing to unfold. By the time we do this again next week, we should know.
The DC in
I lost you there for a second.
The DC in LA, he's going to get some
Raheem Morris?
Yes, Raheem Morris, that's his name. He's going to get a lot of consideration.
Yeah, he probably will, because he was ahead. The Bucks hired him when he was 9 years old to coach their team. And now we got to just reset that for him, because that wasn't a fair evaluation. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. Everyone's going to try to find their McVay once again. And this year's unique because there's a lot of veteran head coaches who are coach of the year guys and who are Super Bowl champions, including the greatest of all time, that you have at the table also. So it actually benefits a team like Carolina, because in a normal year, Belichick doesn't get fired, Carroll doesn't get fired, Vrabel doesn't get fired, Harbaugh doesn't come back to the NFL, and the best candidate is a guy that might come interview with you. So that you might get a lucky there and find that Ben Johnson, as I think Washington will end up with Ben Johnson.
So do I.
I think that you could get lucky and get a coach to come to your crappy job, because there's just a lot of good coaches out there right now. That's why it's a great offseason to fire your coach.
Yeah.
Great offseason to fire your coach.
Let's fire them all.
I'm totally into that, man, especially in New York. So that's it for the recap here on a Monday. Cowboys are done. We won't talk about them again for the rest of the season. And hopefully Jerry Jones sees another Super Bowl in his life. Those are the takeaways. And hopefully next week when we do this, Bill Belichick's Patriots, not the Patriots head coach. That would be a nightmare.
That'd be a nightmare.
Hopefully he's the Cowboys head coach. All right, Mike. Terrific work.
Peace out.
Next week. See you.